Now to a significant update from Manchester United. They're speaking to a number of options about taking the interim head coach role until the end of the season, including their former manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick and interim Darren Fletcher. Let's speak to our football correspondent Rob Dorset. What further detail can you add to that?
Well, that's pretty big news in its own right, isn't it? That we can tell you this afternoon on Sky Sports News. The fact that Manchester United have now begun the process, they are talking to candidates, I think is significant. And I think it's also significant that three former Old Trafford favourites are in the mix for a possible return to take on this interim manager's role. Now, what's been explained to me from various people that I've been speaking to is that United are primarily looking for an interim manager until the end of the season, but they certainly haven't ruled out the possibility that from these conversations with head coaches and available managers that they're having right now, they might find somebody that they decide they want to give the job to substantively. But the focus right now is for an interim coach, and it looks like they're primarily looking at people that they know. There are other candidates they're speaking to as well beyond those, but the fact that Michael Carrick, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Darren Fletcher are three names that have been spoken to about the role, I think is significant. Pretty clear that Manchester United wants somebody who can hit the ground running, who knows the club well and who can take United on from a pretty strong position in the league. They're only sixth in the Premier League right now, and see where they go from there. It's Jason Wilcox, the Director of Football, who's leading the process. He's had some informal conversations, is the way it's been described to me so far, with all of these candidates. But he's expected to conduct more formal interviews with some of them going forward over the coming days before he makes a recommendation for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to make the rubber stamp the final decision. No timescale's been set, but from what I'm gleaning between the lines, it sounds like that Fletcher will be in charge for this game against Burnley on Wednesday night in the Premier League, and then against Brighton in the FA Cup on Sunday. I think it's going to be difficult for United to get somebody in before then. And he is himself a contender for the interim role until the end of the season. But I think from United's point of view, they've always seen him as a promising coach for the future. He's been working with the under-18s, remember. He's never worked with the first team before. So I think there are certain concerns that maybe throwing him in at the deep end with United so well placed for the rest of the season is a big ask. But certainly, from what I've been told, he's had a really good impact on the players already. They've liked working with him. He had his first training session with them yesterday. They like the way that he communicates with them. And the players know Darren Fletcher anyway very well. Because
Two of them very well.
Well, exactly, because he's always around the camp. You know, he's always around there. So I think that helps him. But Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are both seen as good possibilities to come into the club as well. They're both currently out of work. They're both available without paying any compensation. I think that's significant. And so this could move quite quickly from here now, but depending on what Jason Wilcox feels from the conversations that he's having with these people. I think that's the question about how it moves on from here. United want to make sure that their next substantive appointment is the right one. They can't afford to keep chopping and changing the manager. They know that. They know how important the next appointment is. But they're also in a really good position this season to try and make Champions League football, so they don't want to throw away that opportunity. So it's a difficult balancing act for them, I think, at the moment. But big breaking news, significant news, I think, this afternoon on Sky Sports News, that three former Manchester United favourites, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick and Darren Fletcher, have all been spoken to and are all in the mix to potentially become the next Manchester United interim boss for the rest of the season.
I think we spoke yesterday, as well as the news broke, that there is the potential for the managerial market to really explode this summer. A couple of people we've heard from this afternoon, Premier League managers are out of contract. Then there is the World Cup, where, again, some stellar names may well leave their post after the tournament.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And look, I think you've got to try and separate the two situations that we've got here. United are looking for an interim at the moment, but that could change. Because they want to make sure they get the right appointment in the summer. And Oliver Glasner is out of contract, as we just heard from him there in the summer. Marco Silva is out of contract. Andoni Iraola is out of contract. And there's also the possibility of Kieran McKenna and Roberto De Zerbi. Now, I'm throwing those names out there. We haven't had any confirmation that they are in Manchester United's thoughts or on their shortlist. But those are the sorts of managers I think they would be considering. And as you say, the fact that a lot of those are much easier to get in the summer is influencing Manchester United's decision here. If you're making such a big, important decision, why would you make that in January, February time? when the people you might want to be speaking to, you can't get until the summer. I think they're very conscious of that, and that's why it's a very fluid situation at Old Trafford, and particularly at Carrington's training ground right now, with a lot of people talking, a lot of thinking going on. And of course, all of this has been brought about because United sacked Ruben Amorim before they wanted to. It all happened pretty suddenly in the end because of that rapid breakdown in relationships between him and the director of football, Jason Wilcox. I think there were long-term concerns about what the club felt was his inability to evolve his tactics and work the best with the players that he got. Performances were not great, results weren't great against the likes of Wolves and Everton. So that led to a gradual undermining of the relationship and confidence in the head coach. But it was that explosive meeting he had with Jason Wilcox on Friday, which I think brought things to a head. So the fact that United have had to make this decision suddenly and quicker than they wanted to means they're not in a position to make a quick decision now to appoint somebody else. But what this news we're bringing you right now is significant in telling us is that they're starting to make those moves with Solskjaer, Fletcher and Michael Carrick all in the mix potentially to become the next interim boss.